The next section, we will be looking at pose trees and how you can break a pose down into an asana, down into its constituent parts, so that you can use them as building blocks to put together your sequence. Um, this is really helpful when you're using the idea of Vinyasa krama. So in that section, we'll look at a pose tree for crow pose, and I'm going to go through a little Vinyasa krama for crow pose now, working with a few aspects of crow that you could kind of use within a sequence, or even if someone is just struggling with this part of the pose themselves. So this is just a demonstration of how you can use this idea of Vinyasa Krama and working towards a specific point. So in crow pose, we're kind of in this position, and it requires the knees to be quite high up on the arms. So for a lot of people, it's quite tricky. They don't have that flexibility in their hips here. So the knees tend to kind of drop quite low down onto the elbows, and then this makes it very difficult to balance. You can see if I try to balance like this, my knees just slide down. So one of the things we want to get people to do with crow pose is get the knees up as high as we can towards their shoulders. So there are other aspects of crow that require work. One being arm strength, kind of practicing in chaturanga and planks and building strength in the arms, the shoulders, core strength, the sense of lift in the pose. And so wrist strength. So this mobility in the hips isn't the only thing that that people might need to work on in crow pose, but it's something we're going to focus on in this little Vinyasa Krama. So we want to help people to get the knees up as high as we can onto the shoulders, and to almost explore or mimic this movement pattern in preparation for coming to crow pose and having a go at crow pose later on. So this building up the movement pattern and working on it in different positions is one way we can help people to be able to find that pose or find that position more easily. So one thing we can do, starting on our backs, and this isn't going to be a full class, like a class, it's just a series of movements that help to get people to open into this position. So coming to lying on your back, you can come into happy baby. So taking hold of the feet, draw the knees down towards the shoulders here. So here we're working on this movement where we're getting the knee as close as we can towards the shoulder. We can then also, from here, bring the arms like this and work with pressing the knees into the arms. So when you're in crow pose, you're essentially in this position, and you really want to, one, get the knee up as high as you can to the shoulder, and two, grip, almost press your knees or your thighs into your arms. So that is working your adductor muscles in your groin as well. So come to happy baby, draw the knees down towards your shoulders, take a few breaths here, and then bring your hands out and really hug your knees and your arms in towards each other. Then you can rock yourself up to sitting and come into a lunge, a low lunge. So in low lunge, we can sink down into the hips and then so my right foot's forwards. I'm going to take my right hand, bring it to the inside of the right foot, bend the knee and come down into lizard. So in this position, you'll see the knee is coming up again. I move like this. The knee is coming up as high as you can get it to the shoulder here. When you come down into lizard, you come, if you can, down to your forearms. And this really brings the knee up high. So giving students the option to stay up high on their hands, bend the elbows a little bit, maybe bring the forearms onto blocks, maybe come down to the left forearm, maybe bring the right forearm down, and then press the knee and the arm towards each other as you're doing that. So then you can swap to the other side. So this might be easier to see if you come to lizard here and then you're bending your elbows, maybe coming all the way down to your forearms, so that again, the knee comes as high up towards the shoulder. And then as you bend the elbows here, coming down to lizard, you can almost take a few breaths just softening into it, and then take a few breaths gripping the knee and the arm together. So working with this lizard pose, perhaps even moving in and out a few times. Just opening up through that hip and then coming back up. So from lizard, we can come into malasana or yogi squat, where we're coming down to here. So pressing the hands together, again, we're pressing our arms and our legs towards each other. And first, you might want to just let the hips sink here and really press the arms into the legs. Then you might want to get that traction through the legs, pressing the legs into the arms. So as well as bringing the palms together, you also want to try and lift the chest so you're not rounding the back. So if someone's really struggling with malasana, you can get them to turn their toes out a little bit more. You can give them the option to place something under the heels if the heels are struggling to come down. Or you can also place a block underneath the bum so there's something to rest, to sit on. So from malasana, you can straighten the legs and maybe come back down. Again, straightening the legs and coming back down. So there's other movements we can do. We can come into extended side angle. So Konasana, bending that front knee, maybe reaching the top arm up. And as you're here, maybe take that arm alongside the ear, sorry. As you're here, again, working perhaps towards bringing this shoulder and arm together. So we're working constantly with this movement of getting the knee as high up the arm as we can. And again, you can do that on the other side. So from there, then you can come into crow pose and start by bringing the knees up as high as you can to the shoulders. Then placing the hands down in front, lifting the bum up, gazing in front, maybe lifting one foot, maybe lifting both feet, pressing firmly into the hands, lifting through the sitting bones, but really working this feeling of the knees coming up as high as they can towards the shoulders or the armpits, and the knees and the legs and the arms pressing into each other. So that's one short Vinyasa krama of an example of some kind of a mini sequence almost that you could put together that might help you or your students overcome a certain part of a pose, of crow pose, that is challenging. And obviously, if you were doing a full class, you would expand on that. There'd be much more in the class, but that's just one kind of mini sequence that works towards a specific point.